Your teacher today is Dr. Bbosa Science. Dr. Bbosa is a teacher at the Science Foundation College, the best school that teaches sciences. Today, we are going to revise structured questions in transport in animals. Our website is digitalteachers.co.ug. Here find notes, exams and the marking guides in physics, chemistry and biology. Or visit our YouTube channel, Digital Teachers Uganda, for related videos. Please subscribe to promote my videos. Subscription is free. The best secondary school in Uganda is the Science Foundation College. The best primary school in Uganda is Rock of Ages Primary School. Number 1A, give the meaning of each of the following. Roman 1, chloride shift. Roman 2, Boas effect. You can pause and answer. Chloride shift is inward movement of chloride ions into red blood cells to restore electron neutrality as bicarbonate ions diffuse out into the plasma during carbon dioxide carriage. Boas effect is the reduction of hemoglobin affinity for oxygen in the presence of carbon dioxide, or low pH. Or is the shift in hemoglobin dissociation curve to the right in the presence of carbon dioxide. 1B, explain the effect of each of the following on oxygen dissociation curves of hemoglobin of animals. 1. Increasing environmental temperature. 2. High carbon dioxide concentration. You can pause and answer. 1. Increase in environmental temperature shifts oxygen dissociation curve to the right. Reduction of affinity of hemoglobin to oxygen enables hemoglobin to supply oxygen to highly metabolizing tissues. 2. Carbon dioxide shifts oxygen dissociation curve to the right to supply oxygen to respiring tissues. 1C, explain the physiological advantage of a high concentration of myoglobin in skeletal muscles. You can pause and answer. Myoglobin has a high affinity for oxygen. It stores oxygen until oxygen of hemoglobin is used up during the exercise. Number 2, the figure below shows oxygen dissociation curves for tadpole and that of adult frog hemoglobin. A. Explain the relative positions of the curves for tadpole and that of adult frog. You can pause and answer. The oxygen dissociation curves for tadpole lie to the left of that of adult hemoglobin because the hemoglobin for tadpole has high affinity for oxygen. B. What advantage is the position of the dissociation curve of tadpole in its environment. You can pause and answer. It enables hemoglobin of tadpole to pick oxygen from environment at low partial pressure. C. How is the skin of an adult frog adapted for gaseous exchange? You can pause and answer. 1. It is thin to reduce diffusion distance. 2. It is moist. Gases dissolve in moisture, increasing diffusion gradient. 3. Water supplied with blood capillaries to maintain high diffusion gradient. Number 3, the figure shows oxygen dissociation curves of hemoglobin of two animals, X and Y. A. From the figure, state 3 differences in the behavior of hemoglobin in the two animals. You can pause and answer. 1. X has a lower affinity for oxygen, while Y has a higher affinity for oxygen. 2. X releases oxygen slowly at lower oxygen partial pressure, while Y releases oxygen rapidly at high oxygen partial pressures. 3. X becomes fully saturated at oxygen partial pressure above 80 kilopascal, while Y becomes fully saturated at oxygen partial pressure below 6 kilopascal. 4. X has a higher full saturation capacity above 70%. Y has a lower full saturation capacity about 70%. B1. Outline the characteristics of hemoglobin of animal Y. You can pause and answer. 1. Has high affinity for oxygen. 2. Has full saturation capacity about 70%. 3. Becomes fully saturated at oxygen partial pressure below 6 kilopascal. B2. From the characteristics in B1 suggest the nature of habitat in which Y lives. You can pause and answer. It lives in areas of low oxygen partial pressure such as highland or mud. C. Human hemoglobin has higher affinity for carbon monoxide than oxygen. What is the effect of this fact? You can pause and answer. Hemoglobin binds to carbon monoxide rather than oxygen. Hemoglobin fails to carry oxygen to the tissue, leading to death. Number 4, the figure shows diagrams of two types of circulatory systems, A and B, in animals. The arrows show the direction of blood flow. A. Describe each circulatory system. Roman 1. A. You can pause and answer. In A, blood from the body flows to the right atrium, from which it is pumped to the left ventricle, then to the lungs. From the lungs, blood returns to left atrium, then pumped to left ventricle, and finally to the body. In B, from the main heart, blood is pumped to the body. Then it flows to the branchial hearts that pump it to the gills. From the gills, blood flows to the main heart. B. How does each maintain high blood pressure? Roman 1, A. You can pause and answer. In A, blood to the lungs is pumped at lower pressure by right ventricle. Blood to the body is pumped at a higher pressure by the left ventricle. In B, blood to the body is pumped by muscular main heart to the body at high pressure. Blood is pumped to the gills at lower pressure by branchial hearts. C. What is the advantage of maintaining high blood pressure in a circulatory system of an animal? You can pause and answer. High blood pressure enables prompt supply of food and oxygen to the body and removal of waste metabolic products. Number 5, the figure below shows oxygen dissociation curves at 2.7 kilopascal of carbon dioxide in 3 organisms: pigeon, human, and langerworm that lives in mud and waterlogged burrows. A. Explain the position of the curve for langerworm and pigeon in reference to that of human. Roman 1, langerworm. You can pause and answer. The oxygen dissociation curve of langerworm shows that its hemoglobin has a higher affinity for oxygen than of human to enable it to extract oxygen at low partial pressure in the mud. The pigeon's dissociation curve shows that its hemoglobin has a lower affinity for oxygen to provide oxygen that fuel its high muscular activity during flight. C1. On the same graph, sketch oxygen dissociation curves for langerworm and human if both were subjected to the same higher carbon dioxide concentration. So in both, the oxygen dissociation curves would shift to the right because the affinity of hemoglobin for oxygen reduces in the presence of carbon dioxide. So that one of human will also shift to right. However, both graphs shift to the right because the affinity of hemoglobin for oxygen reduces in the presence of carbon dioxide. However, the human curve shifts more because human hemoglobin is more sensitive to carbon dioxide concentration. Number 6. How is each of the following suited for its function? A. Red blood cell. B. Xylem vessel. You can pause and answer. Bioconcave shape increase surface area for gaseous exchange. 2. Thin membrane reduce diffusion distance. 3 has hemoglobin with high affinity for oxygen. 4 lack a nucleus to carry more hemoglobin. B. Xylem vessels. 1 lack in the walls to reduce resistance to water flow. 2 smaller tubes to increase capillarity. 3 lignified to increase strength. 4 pits allow movement into and out of the vessel. 5 lignin reduce water permeability. 7a, what is a closed circulatory system? You can pause and answer. A closed circulatory system is where blood is confined in vessels. B. How is blood flow maintained in such a system? You can pause and answer. Blood is pumped by the heart and maintained in one direction by one-way valves in blood vessels. C. How is blood pressure controlled in a closed system? You can pause and answer. High blood pressure is generated by pumping of muscular heart. Number 8a, what are essential features of mammalian vascular system? 1. Blood to carry cells and dissolved materials such as food, nutrients, and oxygen. 2. Vessels into which blood flows. 3. Valves to maintain one-way flow. 4. Heart to pump blood. 5. Capillaries, where exchange between tissue and blood occurs. 8b, describe the role of blood vascular system of mammals in each of the following processes. 1. Immunity. 1. Contain white blood cells that engulf infectious agents. 2. Contain antibodies that defend the body against microbes. 3. Contain proteins responsible for blood clotting, preventing entry of infectious agents in open skin. B. Describe the role of blood circulation system of mammal in excretion. Blood carries excretory products, for example, carbon dioxide, urea, ammonia, uric acid, to excretory organs. Carbon dioxide to the lungs, urea, ammonia, and uric acid to the kidney. Number 8b, part 3. Describe the role of the blood vascular system of mammals to hormonal control. Blood carries hormones from their sources to target organs. 8c, comment on absence of blood vascular system in protozoa and collaterants. Protozoa and collaterants have enough surface area to volume ratio to satisfy their needs through diffusion over their body surface. 2. They are too small to accommodate a circulatory system. Number 9a, describe the structure of hemoglobin molecule. Hemoglobin has a quaternary structure of 4 polypeptide chains, 2 alpha and 2 beta chains. Each polypeptide chain is linked to a heme group containing iron 2 iron. 9A1 explain why the affinity of hemoglobin for oxygen increases when it already possesses oxygen. You can pause and answer. Each heme group combines with one molecule of oxygen. When one heme group combines with oxygen, causes a change in the structure of hemoglobin that exposes the rest of hemogroups to bind with oxygen. Number 9B, describe how the pH of blood tissue fluids in mammals is maintained. The pH in mammals is maintained by mechanisms operating in the kidney, blood plasma, and lungs. 1. Blood plasma proteins combine reversibly with the hydrogen ions depending on change in pH, thereby buffering pH. 2. In the kidney, carbon dioxide reacts with water, liberating hydrogen ions and bicarbonate ions. When the pH falls, the kidney tubules secrete hydrogen ions and retain bicarbonate ions. And when the pH rises, they secrete bicarbonate ions and retain hydrogen ions until the pH normalizes. In the lungs, hydrogen ions and bicarbonate ions combine to form carbon dioxide that is lost in the lungs, increasing the pH. So removal of carbon dioxide from the body raises the pH. Number 10A, describe the adaptation of mammalian blood living in the following conditions. 1. Extreme oxygen tension. You can pause and answer. Animals living in high oxygen tension don't need or don't have special adaptations. However, animals living in low oxygen tensions have the following adaptations. Hemoglobin with high affinity for oxygen. 2. High red blood cell count to increase carriage of oxygen. 3. High hemoglobin concentration in their red blood cells. A2. Describe the adaptation of mammalian blood living at high altitude. You can pause and answer. At high altitude, there is low oxygen tension. So animal blood is adapted as follows. High red blood cell count, hemoglobin of high oxygen affinity. 3. High concentration of hemoglobin in red blood cells. 10B. Explain how each of the following affect oxygen dissociation curve of hemoglobin. Roman 1. Increased environment temperature. It shifts oxygen dissociation curves to the right, reducing the affinity of hemoglobin to oxygen, thereby delivering oxygen required for increased metabolic activity. Thank you so much for listening to this video. Our website is digitalteachers.co.ug. Here find the notes, exams and their marking guides in physics, chemistry, biology, math, primary science, primary math. Or visit our YouTube channel Digital Teachers Uganda for related videos in physics, chemistry, biology, primary math, primary science. When you go to YouTube website where there is search, type in Digital Teachers Uganda and enter.